Hey everybody, welcome back to more fun at the Red Barn. If you joined us last episode, you saw I went after trying to get some suspension improvements started with the LS car. And in this episode, we're back on the Ferrari 360 Swap 914. Let's see what we get up to this week, shall we? Enjoy. So those of you that are regular viewers know how much I enjoy symmetry and trying to find it wherever I can. And especially on this setup, I mean, that motor and the air cleaners that'll have to be figured out, it's pretty symmetrical. And I had an idea that I think I'm gonna like, so check this out. So this drivetrain's out of like a 2002, 3, something or other, 360 Ferrari. And obviously it had smog systems on it and all kinds of air recirculation stuff. You saw, if you've watched all the episodes, how we flipped the exhaust manifolds to put the air injection ports underneath so you can't see them. And we welded them closed anyway because this doesn't have an air injection pump on it. But there's also a bunch of other sort of smog related stuff. And it's not that I'm anti-smog. I think clean air is great for everybody, so don't get me wrong there. But there's just a bunch of complications that I don't need to deal with on this build. And one of the things is like this thing, right? So whoops, you can see these are they're plugged just to keep things tidy. But these are the cylinder head vents, and it's going to take, blow by and all the other pressure and crap, and it's supposed to run it into the air oil separator. And then the other side of this went up to, I don't even remember what, but I think it plugged into some vents here. And a sort of common thing on the 360s, I won't bother taking off the top of the plenum, but what would happen is oil vapor ends up getting into the intake manifold, and it's not uncommon when you take the plenums off that there's a bunch of oil like floating in the base of the intake manifold. Now, not high enough that it's, falling over into the intake runners, but not a great setup anyway. So I need an oil catch can and like a breather system. And I went online and I looked at, there's some cool stuff out there like the radium stuff that I have for the fuel pressure regulator, the fuel filter and things like that. There's some beautiful stuff, but it's kind of too modern for the build. It's in terms of, like where most of that stuff's not hidden. Yeah, you can see the fuel pressure regulator. But I had this great idea. I've got this space right here. And granted, when it's all put together and the trunk liner's in it, this is gonna get covered, right? But in cars and coffee mode, if you wanna call it that, when the trunk liner gets removed and you're seeing all this mechanical stuff, I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if I could make my own catch can? And you can see where this is going. I bet you're going to guess exactly what I'm going to do. And if your guess was, why don't you just do a mirror image of the coolant tank and just convert this into the oil catch can, right? I can put a breather on top right here. I can put AN fittings, into the sides and, just bring some lines from those over. Anyway, so I whipped up a mirror image bracket setup, and I got to tack this on. I got to get it all positioned, but I figured you didn't want to wait till the end. And I also didn't film making, plasma cutting more stuff. You've seen that a million times. But this will end up sitting. I got to measure stuff out. So this is just eyeball handheld in place. But if I kind of give you the look-see, now you can see it's like super symmetrical. It's a factory looking part because it's a factory part. So I just got this from one of the exotic car wrecking places that's up here in Northern California, and with a little bit of some fittings put on that, I think I can come up with something that is fitting for the build and is super tidy and kind of factory looking. So let me just get this tacked in here, and we'll have one more thing off the to-do list. Nothing like a bungee cord fixturing setup, but it works. And I've got it placed about where I want it. Let's just get this tacked in here. And there it is. all symmetrical like. And I just gave this a quick wipe down, and it obviously needs to be refinished, as does this one. And yeah, I'm gonna slice these little tube holders off because this one won't have a tube. So from the rear, it'll look the exact same as the other one. And yeah, what else? Yeah, got to remove both of these. Had to remove just the one on this side. That tidied up nicely. So that's just the input tube from the steam vent up there off of the heat exchanger. So these will be gone. These will be gone. And I don't know if I'm going to leave this on here and try to put a vent somewhere else, just to make it completely symmetrical, or if I'll just do like a little, those little K&N filter looking vent caps, just put an adapter on there and just have a little low vent to atmosphere for that. That might look okay, and it'll, differentiate it from being the coolant fill, but we'll see. And yeah, I got to do some final welding and all that good stuff, but I'm really liking that. It's very tidy. And now I gotta get the engine out. I keep saying that, but I will. Yeah, anyway, there we go. Yeah, there's contamination inside this thing from the glycol that was in it, and I rinsed it out as best I could, but it still has, unless I like baked it to try to get it to all completely off gas. But anyway, I just knocked those two little vents off and then just plug. It gets thin too because I had to grind it to get all the old metal out of there because I want it to be as flat a surface as I can. But yeah, so I'll just knock this back down flush, and then I also knocked off the little mounts on that side. And then when this gets powder coated or painted or whatever I do with it, it should be nice and matchy-matched to the other side. Well, and you know me and Style Points, I just couldn't look at that bare aluminum. And I had a little satin black line around, so I just tidied up the spots where I knocked up those mounts and where I deleted those vent inlets, and we now have a nice little matchy-match setup. It's not, obviously it's not the finish it's going to be, but you can hardly tell that it's not factory until you get it right in the light. But anyway, so that is looking really good. I'm very happy with how that's turning out. Now I just got to work out the lines and the actual vent to atmosphere part, and we will have a tidy little catch can setup. So coming along, as I keep saying, it is coming along. Well, oh my goodness, you can see how much fun it is working in this footwell. But what I did do is hard to see from there maybe, but I made a sub harness for the drive-by-wire connection. Little 4-plug Deutsch up to the 6-plug here. There's a split on the 5-volt power and the ground, so it's 6 wires in, 2 splices into a 4-plug, and it just makes it a little easier because I don't have to have the harness get all the way up in there. I can just do a plug right here. And then these are some of the wires that I got to get wired into the front for the ignition switch, the starter, what else? The tach, oil pressure light, that kind of stuff. So this is just a handful of wires I'm starting to worry about routing. And then I just hacked together a temporary mock-up of the linkage to start working out pedal travel. And I got to reinforce this mounting plate. It flexes a little bit because it's too on a diagonal and the panel's not completely flat. So this pedal wants to rock a little bit, so I got to do something about that. But mostly it's just getting the pedal travel figured out, and where what series of holes I need here to get the feel that I want. But just from a how's it feel perspective, it feels pretty good, just in terms of ergonomics and how far the pedal travels to go from no throttle to full throttle. And you can see what that linkage is doing. And those of you that are worried about angular movement and all that other good stuff, remember all that is a pedal ratio onto that sensor, or that the pedal sensors, which I can program in the ECU. So if, for instance, I wanted it to be, if it was getting too aggressive right off idle, I can just program the curve in the ECU to say, oh, don't be quite as aggressive. And so it essentially doesn't matter what that lever ratio or that curve is doing between those 2 points, because I can program it to be whatever I want. So really, it's just one less thing to do. So yay. And we all know I can't leave that hack together linkage in there between the Tilton pedal and the Corvette pedal. So I went and got some 12mm hex solid aluminum stock and a left-hand and right-hand thread rod end. And I'll run over to the lathe and get this drilled and tapped. I've got a reverse M6 tap, right and left-hand tap. So I'll get this little linkage made up. And then, while I'm at the lathe, we'll turn it all around, turn it down so it looks a bit like that. So it'll have a nice tidy little wrenchable section, and it'll be pretty everywhere else. And you'll notice there's a little red stripe on that end. That's the indicator that that's the reverse thread. So you don't forget which way you're trying to reef on the wrenches to get this thing to adjust. So I'm gonna head over to the secret undisclosed shop, do a little bit of lathing, even though that's not a word, turning, and I'll have that nice and tidied up. And thanks to Jim for use of the lathe. And here we go. We got a nice tidy little linkage in there and turnbuckly and all that good stuff. So still some final adjustment to make. Still got to trim up the base of that, you know, the Corvette lever there to make it pretty. But, you know, one less thing to do. All right, so only a couple little things done this week, and still the motor's not out of this thing yet. What is going on? Well, something came up, and can you see what that something is? Can you see behind me? There's no more plasma table. Oh my God, I sold the plasma table. So yeah, as much as I use that thing, it was too big. I got it when I was doing like yard art and much larger scale pieces, and I find myself making these, you know, smallish brackets and the things you see me working up for the cars, and it just took up too much space. So options are I replace it with a smaller one, but I'm going to see if I can get by with Send Cut Send for a little while and see if that meets my needs in terms of turnaround time. Probably looking at getting a 3D printer, because a lot of this stuff, you know, like these brackets that I made for the catch can and all that good stuff, and stuff like the battery bracket and mounts for stuff like that. 3D printing with some of the materials that are now available are that's a potentially really good option. And, you know, much smaller scale, probably covers most of what I want. So nothing yet, no decisions finally made, other than I've got some space, and now I've got to reorganize everything and work out a new shop layout that optimizes that new square footage. So with that, again, just a couple little things done this week. I will get the motor out. Hey, because now I got a place to put it while I'm working on stuff. Anyway, again, as always, thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, and everybody take care. We'll talk to you all again real soon. Bye-bye.